So I'm gonna go over some of the basics of Google Sheets, and honestly these same things apply to Excel. I'm just using Google Sheets because I know all of you have access to Google Sheets now. Not only is this gonna show you how to make a graph, but it's gonna show you how to take the natural log in Google Sheets and then do it 30 times really fast, or to take any math operation and do it 30, 50, 100 times really fast, and then turn that operation into a graph. So let's go to my Google Sheets. I'm just gonna supersize this for you. There we go. So first of all, I already have some data sitting in here. Let me just move this out of the way. I have some data sitting here. It's totally fake data. I rigged this data and it's perfect data. And so I don't want you to think that you're supposed to have this data. So let's just look at the headings I have. I have the mass of copper, I have the volume that this copper is dissolved in, and I have the time at which it took to dissolve the copper. I'm not going to pretend to explain this fake lab because it's totally fake. But in my post lab, I'm supposed to do some math. Eventually I'm supposed to create a graph of molarity versus time. I'm supposed to create a graph of the natural log of molarity versus time. And maybe I'm supposed to create a graph of 1 over molarity versus time. I wonder what this might be a reference to. Reaction rates, that's the answer to that. So I first need to calculate moles, and so of course I got to take these masses, go to the periodic table, and I got to divide them by moles. And my suggestion is the first time you do any of these calculations, you do them in a calculator on paper the way you know how to do them, but only do them once. And then think about how you can set that up in Excel. And by that I mean, if you had 2 grams of copper, does it irritate anybody that this doesn't have the same number of decimals? Let's add a decimal or two. There we go. Now they all have 2 decimal places. If I have 2 grams of copper and I want to convert that to moles, I would usually do 2 grams times 1 mole divided by the molar mass. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 2 times 1 divided by the molar mass. In Excel, I'm going to say this little square or cell equals this mass times 1 divided by, and then the molar mass of copper. Alright? And it's given me a suggestion right here, and because I've already done this in my calculator, I know that I've set it up correctly. I've done it on paper once, and now I know that my cell is set up correctly. And notice that this cell is A2. It's a reference to this 2 grams of copper. I hit enter, and now that value is in the cell. And what's cool is I need to do this to all of this data. And if I come over here on the corner and see how the cursor changes from an arrow to like a really giant plus sign, if I hold the left mouse button down or left click down and then drag to the bottom, it does the math for every single one of those. Now I have a lot of values and I'm going to get rid of a bunch of them. There we go. That's a much more reasonable number of values showing. And then I'm going to move on to the next step. So now I've just calculated the moles of copper. How would I do molarity? Molarity is moles divided by liters. So this cell needs to equal the moles divided by the liters. Well, these are milliliters, so I got to take that value and divide it by 1,000 so that it equals liters instead. And again, on my paper, on my calculator, I've done this calculation once. That matches my paper. I hit enter, and now I've got the molarity. And if I drag it down, it's going to use all those references. See, like this one here is referencing that cell and that cell to get the molarity. I have too many values, not happy with those values. I'm going to reduce it down to a reasonable number of values. Okay? And then I have to take the natural log. And this is kind of one of the new things. Pretty much any math operation is hiding inside Excel and Google Sheets. And there's like a little format for what they all are, and you see functions, and you can kind of go through and find which function you need. We're doing math. So if I want to take the natural log of something, I'm going to hit equals and then ln, right? ln, the natural log, and then I click on that value. Guess what I've done before I type this in the Excel? I've done it on paper. So on paper, I've already taken the natural log of this value, and I know that that is the right answer. So I feel like I set it up correctly, and then I can just drag down, and it does the math 1,000 times. Yes, these should be negative values. Funny things happen when you take the natural log. There we go. And then what should I do for the inverse of molarity? Well, inverse is actually 1 divided by, and then I click on the molarity and hit enter. That's what it said in my calculator also when I was preparing. I drag down, and I don't like the number of places. There we go. Now it's time to make a graph. Let's start with the easiest graph, molarity versus time. So I highlight the molarity. Then I want to get that time as the y-axis, so I need to highlight that second. I hold down Control, and then I highlight the section, and that's probably tricky because you're holding down Control and dragging down. It's like 3 hand movements occurring at once. And now molarity was highlighted first, that'll be the x values. Time was highlighted second, that'll be the y values. And then I need to insert a chart. And that is not the chart I want. But you have a whole lot of options here. And we want to almost always pick the scatter plot. Man, that looks like our graph, doesn't it? And then under customize, I can add titles and things. But the big thing we probably need to make sure we know how to do is how to add, where is it? How to add a line. Let's see, it's hiding in here somewhere. I should put a title on it, but I'm going to skip that. You guys know how to make a title. Maybe it's under series. Man, nothing like watching people fumble. That doesn't make. I thought it was under legend. Maybe I'm wrong. Uh-oh. Chart style? No. Ugh. I feel like I'm letting you down right now. Those of you who've made it this far, make sure you talk about this part when you say talk to Mr. Shangra. That's me. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Underneath series, I just didn't scroll far enough down. It says trend line. So you add your trend line, and then you can even click on show the r-squared value there, and then close it down. You have your trend line. I forgot to add the actual line itself. Let's go back into that, and underneath legend, I think is where it was. No, it was under series. We just had this conversation. We're serious about using series. Trend line, error bars. Somewhere in here we should be able to get it to show up, the actual line. Notice there are other lines. We always want to do linear because we're looking for the linear relationship. So I got this graph made. I need to move it somewhere else. I'm just going to shrink it and move out of my way for right now. So I need to make this graph. I highlight it, hold down Control, and I highlight time, and I insert my chart. Again, that's not the right graph. It really likes to make bar graphs. Bar graphs are a waste of time for showing trends. There we go. We have a trend line. I'm going to customize it. Now we know it's under series because we've seen that faux pas occur. I'm going to change colors because why not? Let's see, circles, trend lines. Do we need a data label? No, we don't need those data labels. Do we need error bars? No, we don't really need. That is kind of cool though. I like the error bars. I'm just kind of irritated that I can't figure out how to. Use equation. There it is. Underneath the label it said use equation. Okay. So now we've got the equation for this line, and we have r-squared value. Look how this line doesn't even remotely match up with the dots. I would say that's definitely not a linear relationship between the natural log and the time. Let's do the last one. Alright, I'm highlighting the inverse of molarity, holding down Control, and then highlighting the time. I am inserting my chart. I am switching that to an actual useful chart. Uh-oh, what did I need to use scatter? Something's funny in Denmark here. I think I accidentally switched, there we go. Yeah, I had accidentally switched from the range. I had actually switched from Y to X and X to Y. Customize, series, trend line, linear, show R squared value, use equation. Ooh, look at that horrible R squared value. So this is the inverse graph, and now that we have these graphs, we could move them. We could copy the chart, move it in both Excel and Google Sheets. You can copy that and paste it into either your Word document, or you can paste it directly into your Google, whatever you call it when you type up in Google. I just blanked it. Google document. But that's how you make graphs. That's how you do natural log and all that fun stuff. Hope you guys learned something, and you can do the exact same thing in Google Sheets and Excel. Making the graphs is just a slightly different process, but calculating the natural log is the same thing. You hit equal, and then you type the function. You could do equal sum, pretty much anything you can think of. You know, it'll do the math, but you might just need to look through those different function options underneath math. And you can see, look, cosine. Like, you ever need to take cosine of something, absolute value. And this has like a description of what each thing is underneath that. Okay, hope you learned something, and have a good day. Bye-bye.